Have you ever landed the good job, secured a salary with a comma in it, maybe even two, and still found yourself checking your bank account on the 20th of the month with a total sinking feeling in your stomach, right? It's wild because you aren't buying yachts, you aren't going on lavish European vacations, you're literally just buying groceries, paying rent, and trying to survive. Yet somehow a six-figure salary just isn't enough anymore. If you feel like you're always one bad month away from disaster, listen to me. You are not bad with money, you're not lazy, and you're absolutely not imagining this.
It's kind of the defining question for an entire generation of American professionals right now. Why on earth does making $100,000 feel broke? Today, we're going to break down exactly what happened to the American economy to make this our reality. We're looking at the math, the hidden costs, and the massive structural shifts that have completely transformed what a high salary actually means in today's world. Think back to the 1990s. Making $100,000 puts you firmly and comfortably in the upper middle class. You could own a home, raise a family, save up for retirement, and still take a vacation to Disney World without sparking a total financial crisis. But wow, the reality today is starkly different. If you make six figures in cities like Austin, New York, or San Francisco, you might literally be struggling with rent and dreading the end of the month. Between remote work, migration, and inflation, even previously affordable cities are just totally out of reach. The finish line hasn't just moved, it's practically sprinting away from us. Okay, let's dive into this. Chapter 1, The Six-Figure Illusion. The math has changed. So inflation didn't just bump up the price of a gallon of milk. It completely eroded the buying power of what used to be considered a wealthy income. To put that into perspective, back in 1985, the median home cost was about 4 times the average annual salary. Just 4 times. Fast forward to today, that cost is now 7 to 8 times the average salary. And in a lot of major metro areas, it's 12 times or more. There's no way around it. Yes, your salary went up, but the cost of simply putting a roof over your head vastly outpaced your salary growth. To really grasp this, we have to look at the brutal math of a modern paycheck. Because what employers offer on paper, well, it isn't what you take home. A $100,000 salary in California gets chewed up before it even hits your bank account. You've got federal and state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and health insurance premiums, all taking massive bites out of the pie. Your actual take-home pay, it might be closer to $65,000. That leaves you with roughly $5,500 a month to cover rent, food, transportation, and utilities. The paycheck definitely looks bigger than it did decades ago, but the obligations attached to it are absolutely massive. Moving on to Chapter 2, The Housing Market Trap. Why Gen Z literally cannot buy a house. And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue. Renting forever isn't some careless, avocado toast lifestyle choice for younger generations. It's a strict mathematical inevitability caused by a deeply broken market. Look at 1960. The median home price was around $11,900, and household income was about $5,600. That's a home-to-income ratio of roughly 2 to 1. Today, the median home price is around $420,000, with household income sitting at $75,000. That ratio is a staggering 5.6 to 1 nationally. The core of the American dream has, mathematically speaking, completely decoupled from the reality of American wages. When millennials and Gen Z entered the housing market, they ran headfirst into 3 simultaneous macroeconomic crises. First up, record low inventory. Baby boomers are aging in place much longer, which means fewer homes are actually up for sale. Second, institutional investors. Regular buyers aren't just competing with their neighbors anymore. You're competing with hedge funds, paying all cash, often way above the asking price. And third, the interest rate shock, which has just been absolutely devastating. Let's zoom in to see what that interest rate shock actually means for your wallet. Consider this. If you bought a $400,000 home at a 3% interest rate back in 2021, your monthly payment was about $1,686. Today, that exact same home at a 7.5% interest rate is going to cost you almost $2,800 a month. That is over $1,100 more every single month for the exact same house. Over 30 years, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra interest. Chapter 3, The Cost of Survival, The Invisible Weights Dragging You Down. Even if you somehow manage to navigate the housing market, or, you've just accepted a life of renting, there are these invisible, everyday survival costs actively dragging you down. $37,000. Just let the weight of that reality sink in for a second. That is the average student loan debt for the class of 2024. And remember, that's just the average. A lot of professionals carrying advanced degrees have double or even triple that amount chained to their ankles before they earn their first real paycheck. In 1980, college costs were pretty standard and totally manageable. But by 2010, an entire generation found their loan balances stagnating. Even with consistent payments, the relentless interest just ate up every single dollar. And by 2023, the cost of a 4-year college education had increased by over 1,200%. This massive tuition hike acts like a giant economic anchor. It delays buying a home by an average of 7 years, it reduces retirement contributions, and it severely stalls people from starting families.
And then, well, life actually happens. The cumulative damage of basic living expenses is just staggering. Childcare now costs anywhere between $1,200 and $2,500 a month per child. A single, totally uncomplicated ER visit can run you $2,500 out of pocket, and that's even with insurance. Oh, and groceries? They've seen a 25% increase since 2020 alone. When you add all these invisible weights together, the margin between everyday stability and absolute crisis becomes razor thin.
Chapter 4. The Burnout Economy. Working more than ever and falling behind. The 40-hour workweek, which was won by labor unions in the 1930s and long considered the gold standard of American life, is now, for millions of people, just a baseline minimum. Consider this wild reality. Over 39% of Americans now have a side hustle. And to be incredibly clear about this, they aren't doing it out of some grand entrepreneurial ambition or a desire to, hustle. They're doing it out of absolute financial necessity. Driving for Uber after a full day at the office, delivering DoorDash on the weekends, it's all just to make the math of basic survival work out. To truly understand this frustration, you have to look at the gap between productivity and wage growth. From 1979 to 2022, worker productivity rose by a massive 64%. Workers today are producing more value than at any other time in history. But wage growth? It only went up a mere 17% when adjusted for inflation. Think about that. You're working more efficiently, you are generating far more value for your company, but you are receiving a demonstrably smaller share of the pie. And this brings us to a really interesting, kind of dark phenomenon known as doom spending. It's the act of spending money impulsively in the present because of a deep feeling of economic hopelessness about the future. When the system feels totally rigged against you and you're carrying thousands in credit card debt with soaring interest rates, financial anxiety turns into a very real mental health crisis. People end up performing financial stability on social media while quietly drowning in the background. The shame and exhaustion are literally suffocating. This brings us to Chapter 5, Fixing a Broken System. What actually needs to change?
So, the crucial point is, we aren't just here to admire the problem, right? There's no personal finance hack that fixes a structural issue. You literally cannot skip enough lattes to budget your way out of a national housing crisis. We need systemic solutions. Number 1, increase the housing supply by rethinking outdated zoning laws. 2, enact student loan reform to address a deeply broken educational funding model. 3, implement universal paid leave, which is a basic standard in almost every other wealthy nation. 4, reform healthcare costs so a medical emergency doesn't equal bankruptcy. And 5, ensure wages track productivity, returning to a model where your hard work actually translates directly into a better life. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this core message, taken directly from the source material. You are living inside an economic system that shifted the rules quietly over decades. Please hear this. If you feel broke despite doing everything right, getting the degree, landing the good job, meticulously budgeting every dollar, you are not failing. Your struggle is the direct result of structural failures and shifted rules, not some personal flaw. The anxiety you feel? It's entirely rational. Understanding why the system is broken is the absolute first crucial step toward fixing it, both personally and structurally. So I want to end on a provocative question for you to reflect on. What's the biggest financial pressure you're facing right now? Look at your own life and consider how the massive macroeconomic shifts we've explored today are impacting your daily reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the data, and definitely keep demanding better.